to witness something really happen.
I really got smacked.
The camera flashes never stopped around Brooke Shields. Not when she was a baby, not when she was a child, and definitely not when the entire world decided she was no longer just a little girl, but a product. Hollywood has destroyed a lot of child stars, but Brooke Shields' story feels different. Because long before the fame, the scandals, the magazine covers, and the controversies, there was a child who never really got the chance to grow up normally. Before she could even walk, Brooke was already in front of cameras. Before she understood what fame meant, adults were building entire businesses around her image. And by the time she became one of the most famous teenagers on earth, millions of people already felt like they owned a piece of her life. What makes the story even darker is that most of it happened in plain sight. Brooke Shields was born into a world obsessed with beauty and status. Her mother, Terry Shields, reportedly believed almost immediately that her daughter was destined for fame. Brooke wasn't even 1 year old when she started modeling. While most babies were learning to speak, Brooke was already appearing in commercials and print campaigns. The entertainment industry loved her instantly. Executives saw dollar signs. Photographers saw the perfect face. And Hollywood saw something even more powerful: controversy. Brooke quickly became one of the most recognizable child models in America. She worked with major agencies, appeared in countless ads, and seemed completely comfortable in front of cameras. But behind the glamorous image was a child carrying pressure that most adults couldn't handle. Her mother managed nearly every part of her life and career. Brooke later admitted she spent much of her childhood trying to protect her mother emotionally, while also keeping her own career alive. As Terry struggled with alcoholism, work became Brooke's escape. The more successful Brooke became, the more the adults around her pushed boundaries, and Hollywood rewarded it. At just 10 years old, Brooke became involved in a controversial photo shoot directed by photographer Gary Gross. The images would later become one of the most disturbing legal battles of her career. At the time, Brooke was too young to fully understand the long-term consequences, but the contract signed on her behalf would follow her for decades. Still, the industry kept moving forward. Then came the movie that changed everything. In 1978, Brooke starred in Pretty Baby, directed by Louis Malle. The film told the story of a child growing up inside a brothel in New Orleans. Brooke was only 12 years old. The movie instantly sparked outrage. Some critics praised it as art. Others were horrified that a child had been placed in such an adult role. But controversy only made Brooke more famous. And that became the pattern of her entire teenage career. Every project pushed the line further. Every interview became more uncomfortable. Every headline focused less on Brooke the person and more on Brooke the image. Even television interviews felt unsettling. Adult journalists openly discussed her appearance, her body, and her sexuality while she was still clearly a child. Some interviewers joked about men being attracted to her. Others asked questions that would never be acceptable today. And somehow the entire entertainment world treated it like normal celebrity culture. Then, in 1980, Brooke became a global phenomenon after starring in The Blue Lagoon alongside Christopher Atkins. The film was a box office success. Suddenly, Brooke Shields wasn't just famous. She was everywhere. Magazine covers, commercials, talk shows, fashion campaigns. At only 15 years old, she became one of the biggest stars in the world. Then came the campaign that turned her into a cultural lightning rod. Calvin Klein launched its now infamous ads featuring Brooke Shields in tight designer jeans. One line changed everything. "You want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing." The commercial exploded across America. Some people thought it was clever marketing. Others called it exploitative. Television stations debated banning the ads. Parents were furious. But the outrage only made the campaign bigger. Sales skyrocketed. Brooke became even more famous. And Hollywood learned a dangerous lesson. Controversy sold. The strange part was that Brooke herself later admitted she didn't fully understand the adult implications behind many of the advertisements and movie roles she was given. She was still a teenager navigating an industry run by adults who constantly blurred the line between innocence and marketing. As Brooke's fame grew, so did the pressure surrounding her personal life. The media obsessed over her relationships. Every friendship became tabloid news. Every public appearance became a headline. One of the most talked about friendships in her life was with Michael Jackson. The two bonded over growing up famous at incredibly young ages. Brooke later explained that both of them understood the emotional isolation that came with childhood fame. But even that friendship became sensationalized by the media. Hollywood wasn't interested in seeing Brooke as a real person. It only cared about keeping the story alive. Then came another devastating blow. Brooke attempted to regain control over controversial photos taken during her childhood by filing a lawsuit against Gary Gross. She wanted the rights to the images removed from circulation. But after years in court, the legal system ruled against her because contracts signed by her mother were still considered valid. The decision shocked many people. Imagine growing up and realizing that choices made for you as a child could legally follow you forever. The media response made it even worse. Some commentators argued Brooke couldn't complain because her career had been built on provocative roles and campaigns. Critics blamed her instead of asking why adults in powerful positions had created those situations in the first place. That judgment followed her for years, and eventually, Hollywood began turning on her. Child stars often face one brutal reality. The industry loves you when you're young, but the moment you grow up, everything changes. Brooke discovered that firsthand. After dominating pop culture as a teenager, she tried reinventing herself as a serious adult actress. She enrolled at Princeton University and earned a degree in French literature. She believed Hollywood would respect her more. Instead, many people in the industry viewed her education as a problem. Brooke later revealed that some executives preferred the younger version of her, the version they felt was easier to control. Suddenly, the same industry that once worshipped her started treating her like she no longer mattered. The offer slowed down. Movies struggled at the box office. Critics became harsher. And behind the scenes, things became even darker. Brooke later revealed she experienced sexual assault after meeting with a powerful Hollywood executive who had offered to discuss a role. For years, she stayed silent because she feared speaking publicly would destroy what remained of her career. That silence says everything about Hollywood at the time. Many stars faced similar experiences, but very few felt safe enough to talk about them. As the years passed, Brooke struggled to rebuild herself professionally. She eventually stepped away from major film roles and found new success in theater and television. Her performances on Broadway earned praise, and later roles on shows like Friends introduced her to a new generation. Slowly, she started reclaiming control over her own story. But one of the hardest decisions of her life still remained. Brooke eventually severed professional ties with her mother. It was painful, emotional, and deeply complicated. Despite everything they'd been through together, Brooke realized she could no longer trust a person who had managed her life since childhood. Still, even after years of conflict, Brooke never spoke about her mother with pure hatred. That's what makes this story so complicated. There was love there. There was pain there. There was dependency there. And Brooke understood that her mother was battling demons of her own. Years later, Brooke faced another deeply personal challenge after becoming a mother herself. Following the birth of her daughter with husband Chris Henchy, Brooke suffered severe postpartum depression. She later admitted she felt emotionally disconnected, overwhelmed, and hopeless. At one point, she even contemplated ending her life. What made the situation worse was a public reaction that followed. After Brooke openly discussed using medication and therapy to treat postpartum depression, Tom Cruise publicly criticized antidepressants during a televised interview, indirectly questioning Brooke's treatment choices. The moment exploded across headlines. But this time, Brooke didn't stay silent. She responded publicly, defending mental health treatment and explaining that postpartum depression was not a debate, it was her real experience. And for countless women watching around the world, her honesty became incredibly important. For the first time in her life, Brooke Shields wasn't being used as a symbol created by Hollywood. She was speaking entirely for herself. That may be the most powerful part of her story, because despite everything, the exploitation, the controversies, the lawsuits, the media obsession, the heartbreak, and the pressure, Brooke survived an industry that has destroyed so many child stars. Hollywood tried to define her as an image, a fantasy, a scandal, a headline. But Brooke Shields spent decades fighting to become something much harder. a real human being. Today, people look back at many moments from Brooke's early career with shock. Interviews that once aired on national television now feel deeply disturbing. Magazine covers once celebrated as glamorous now raise serious questions about how child stars were treated. And maybe that's why Brooke's story still matters, because it forces people to confront something uncomfortable. The entertainment industry didn't just fail to protect young stars. Sometimes it rewarded the people exploiting them. But Brooke Shields outlasted all of it, not because Hollywood saved her, not because fame protected her, but because somewhere beneath decades of pressure and public scrutiny, she kept fighting for ownership of her own life. And in an industry built on illusion, that may be the rarest ending of all.